Hello, I'm Kochanski, Wilderness Living Skills and Survival Instructor. A question I am frequently asked is, what is a survival knife? What's my idea of a survival knife? Well, we have 4 knives here that we will discuss to a certain point. The basis for the type of survival knife that I prefer is the Scandinavian or Swedish, Norwegian, Finnish type knife, which we are looking at here. The handle that fits, blade about the width of the palm. That's something that will occur for all the knives. And one would like to see continuous curvature right from the tip to the handle. No guard. The circumstance here is that the grind on all the preferred knives are what they call the Scandi Grind. And we will here take our knives and make them the other way to compare the thicknesses of the blades. Now, the knife, in my opinion, should be unbreakable. Therefore, it should have a full tang, and the handle should be made of something that will be unbreakable. And the blade should be of a thickness that you feel will take a lot of abuse. And so we have that sort of there is probably twice as thick as the Scandinavian type of knife. The third knife, which is more connected with me than anything else, is the knife that is very heavy to the feel and continuous curvature, definitely almost all the way, and no real hint of a guard, and holes that are strategically located in the handle for various purposes, and the thickness of the blade, which is the thickest of all, which is again about a quarter thicker than the previous knife that we have. This one has got a butt plate so that you could hammer on it with rocks if you felt like it, and the handle is made of material that if you used it to hammer in nails, it likely will hardly make a mark. Now, when I rode bushcraft 25 years ago, I was actually talking about this knife. And this knife is made with a cold chisel and a belt sander. And the handle was a piece of a hockey stick, riveted with copper rivets. The knife took 20 minutes to build. When I worked in a situation with regard to the survival school north of Hinton, there they issued and reissued a knife, and people would get issued with a knife that had been used over and over again, and it means it was so dull that there was no time to actually put an edge on it, yet there was this requirement that people make feather sticks and so on. So in our spare time we cranked off many of these knives. Comfortable handle, blade no bigger than 4 fingers, continuous curvature, nothing unusual or weird about any shape. The tip of the knife ends up somewhere between the center and the back of the handle. The blade is so thin that it's quite flexible. And yet, in comparison to many knives, when someone uses it for peeling and carving and everything, they are really taken by how marvelous this knife is because of its sort of design features. Now, all these knives are similar in size and shape and style. This one is maybe not really classed as a survival knife, but it does all the functions except for being thick enough to be able to cut yourself out of an airplane or something like that. I would say that it's a serious disaster if your knife breaks while you're using it. The thickest blade of all is here. Theoretically, you should be able to carve a netting needle and cut down wrist-thick trees with this very same knife. You should be able to pound on the back with a stick. You should be able to try hard to abuse it, and it should serve to do all the things you need to do in survival. And I would say if you're wanting a visual image of what I would consider to be an ideal survival knife, you're looking at it right there. This one actually in some ways tends to be more conventional and more elegant, but it too is very difficult. The makers feel that the knife should be rather difficult to break because of its construction, full tang. The holes in the knife, it could be important that there be a hole for a lanyard if you're scared of losing your knife, but also for putting on a long tail that when you're working over snow, should you drop your knife in the snow, usually you can assume you're not going to find it. But with a long tail with a fluorescent ribbon on it, you're going to be able to locate the knife when you're digging for it in knee-deep snow. This one is very, very traditional, fairly elegant, based on a tradition that goes back hundreds and hundreds of years in Scandinavia. But it's not made as durable as we would like, on account that using conventional methods where the tang narrows down and the weak point is somewhere close to where the blade enters the handle and can't take too much prying and too much abuse. But if you are asking what kind of a knife I prefer, it could be any of these, but this is the one that is the Skookum that I am quite taken with since it's come out a few years ago. If your interest has been piqued here, you've suddenly realized you like what you hear us saying about knives, we have videos. You check them out on www.karamat.com, and we have a video on sharpening, and it includes much more thorough analysis of knives. Here we're just talking about a few, where there we tend to talk about many knives that would play a role in one's survival. So almost everything on these short videos that we have is supported by long-term articles that are more instructive and go in greater depth.